I think a lot of adults are trying so hard to protect children emotionally that we are becoming afraid to guide them clearly. So now, behavior that should become a lesson gets laughed off, excused, or endlessly explained. And the problem is not only what this creates for children later in life, it's what it creates right now in homes, classrooms, friendships, families, because children are learning in real time whether other people matter too. Welcome to Little Feedback Guidance. I'm the Nurture Navigator. This podcast exists to help take the big emotional, developmental, and relational concepts affecting children's behavior and make them understandable and usable in everyday parenting and teaching. Because so many adults are trying their best while carrying overwhelming amounts of information, opinions, and pressure. And sometimes parents do not need more shame or more noise. They just need help understanding what is actually happening underneath this behavior. So together, we break down these deeper ideas into practical, relational guidance adults can actually live out with children every day. Are you ready? Let's go. A moment has replayed in my mind for years now. A little child, maybe around 3 years old, grabbed another child by the hair and pulled him straight to the ground. And immediately, the adult rushed over and said softly, "Are you upset, sweetie?" And listen, I understood the intention, I really did. The adult was trying to stay emotionally connected, trying not to blame the child, trying to be gentle. I think a lot of parents and teachers are trying so hard to do things differently than what was done to them growing up. I understand that deeply. But I remember standing there waiting for the rest of the parenting. You know what I mean? Waiting for, hey, we don't hurt people. Waiting for the child to be slowed down enough to see the other child crying. Waiting for guidance, repair, anything. But the moment just ended there. Meanwhile, the child laying on the ground crying almost disappeared emotionally from the room unless you were their caregiver. And I remember thinking, this is bigger than one moment. Because I think a lot of adults are becoming so afraid of hurting children emotionally that we're starting to confuse guidance with harm. So now, behavior that should be lovingly interrupted just gets emotionally explained instead. And you can see it everywhere now. Children screaming at adults in stores while everybody nearby suddenly becomes part of the emotional support team. Tiny children running entire households and classrooms with the emotional authority of a stressed out CEO who just lost a merger deal over blueberries. Teachers exhausted, parents exhausted, everybody carefully negotiating with behavior that honestly just needed a calm adult to step in and guide it. And listen, children are funny sometimes. A child saying something completely out of pocket in public can absolutely humble a grown adult. I'm not saying children need to become tiny, emotionless robots sitting quietly with folded napkins and perfect manners. That's not the goal. The goal is helping children learn how to live with other people. Because children are not just learning how to express themselves. They are learning how to carry themselves inside relationships. And relationships require more than self-expression. They require awareness, mutuality, repair, respect, the ability to realize other people matter too. And children are not born naturally knowing how to do that. A small child naturally experiences the world through themselves first. Their feelings, their frustration, their discomfort. That's normal. But part of healthy development is slowly helping children grow beyond that emotional center point, helping them realize, yes, your feelings matter deeply, and the other people around you matter deeply too. Both truths have to grow together. Because I think some adults are so focused on protecting children from difficult feelings that they accidentally stop preparing children for real relationships. Real relationships require accountability, patience, repair, frustration tolerance, and respect. You cannot fully live well with people without those things, and children need help learning them now, not just someday when they become adults, now, because the child who is never guided through disrespect now becomes a teenager who struggles with teachers later. The child who is never taught repair becomes the friend who hurts people and genuinely does not understand why relationships keep breaking down. The child who learns that everybody emotionally adjusts around them can eventually struggle in classrooms, friendships, workplaces, marriage, community, not because they are bad, but because mutuality was never fully developed. And I think this is why so many adults feel exhausted now. Everything starts emotionally revolving around the child's reactions. The classroom shifts around one child. The family shifts around one child. The emotional climate shifts around one child. And after a while, adults stop leading and start emotionally managing around behavior instead. That is exhausting for everybody, and honestly deeply confusing for children too. Because children are not supposed to emotionally run relationships. They actually feel safer when adults are willing to lovingly lead. Bruce Perry talks beautifully about this through regulation. Children borrow emotional organization from adults. So when adults can stay calm, grounded, connected, and still lovingly say, no, we are not doing that, children actually feel safer emotionally, not rejected, safe. And Gabor Mate speaks so beautifully about attachment, but attachment was never meant to replace guidance. Children absolutely need emotional connection, but they also need adults willing to help shape their character relationally. Because protecting children from shame is healthy. Protecting children from accountability completely is not. Those are different things. Healthy correction says, you are still deeply loved and this behavior cannot continue. That is not rejection. That's leadership. Marshall Rosenberg's work always reminds me that children are learning whether other people are emotionally real to them. Because communication teaches humanity. Children absorb whether people matter, whether gentleness matters, whether emotions become permission to hurt others. And if nobody consistently helps children reconnect to the people they hurt, empathy stays underdeveloped. That's why correction matters, parents, teachers. Not because adults are trying to control children, but because adults are helping children stay connected to humanity when emotions get big. And Ellen White understood something deeply important long before neuroscience explained it biologically. Children become what they repeatedly live around. The atmosphere matters. The tone matters. The modeling matters. The consistency matters. Children learn what relationships feel like by living inside them every day. And if children repeatedly experience adults avoiding guidance because they're afraid to upset them, children can slowly begin expecting the world to emotionally reorganize itself around them too. But eventually, the world pushes back. Friends push back. Teachers push back. Marriage pushes back. Workplaces push back. And if children never learn mutuality, accountability, or how to carry frustration without hurting people, life becomes very confusing later. That is why guidance matters so much. Not because we are against children, but because we are preparing them to live well with other people. But I also think we need to talk honestly about what happens to relationships right now when behavior is never guided. Not just later when children become adults, now. Inside homes, inside classrooms, inside sibling relationships. Because when one child is constantly expected to be understanding, while another child's behavior gets endlessly excused, children feel that imbalance deeply. One child gets corrected immediately, another gets protected immediately. And children notice that much faster than adults think they do. You can almost feel the tension building quietly inside the home sometimes. The resentment, the frustration, the emotional exhaustion. Because eventually one child starts feeling like everybody bends around them. Everybody protects them. Everybody expects me to tolerate that, to tolerate what nobody else would tolerate. And that hurts both children. It hurts the child who feels emotionally overlooked, and it hurts the child who is never being guided towards awareness, repair, accountability, or mutual respect. Because correction is not rejection. Correction is how children slowly learn. I am deeply loved, and I am responsible for how I affect people. That lesson matters inside sibling relationships too, inside classrooms too, inside friendships too. Because children are learning what relationships are right now. Right now in the way they speak to siblings, the way they handle frustration with classmates, the way adults respond when they hurt somebody. And when adults constantly emotionally reorganize around one child's reactions, everybody else in the environment feels it. Teachers feel it, siblings feel it, other children feel it. After a while, the entire emotional climate starts revolving around preventing one child from becoming upset. And that is exhausting for everybody involved. But honestly, it is deeply confusing for the child too. Because children are not supposed to emotionally run relationships. They're supposed to be lovingly guided inside relationships. That's what actually helps children feel emotionally safe long term. I think many adults hear the word correction and immediately picture criticism. But healthy correction is not humiliation. It's not, what is wrong with you? It's actually, let me help you through this. I know you're upset, but you can't hurt people. I know you're frustrated, but other people still matter. That is guidance. That is emotional leadership. That's love. And I really want parents listening to hear this clearly. You are allowed to step in. You are allowed to say, no, we're not doing that. You are allowed to lovingly interrupt harmful behavior. You are allowed to correct your child calmly. You are allowed to hold boundaries. You are allowed to guide behavior clearly. That doesn't make you cruel. It makes you present. Because children are not supposed to emotionally run the room, right? That is too much power for a developing nervous system. Children need warmth. Children need empathy. Children need emotional safety. But they also need adults willing to lovingly lead. Connection and correction. Warmth and clarity. Empathy and boundaries too. Children need both. And if this conversation is stirring something uncomfortable inside you, stay gently with yourself. Because many adults are trying to build healthier homes than the ones they personally experienced growing up. Some people grew up around fear, harshness, humiliation, criticism. So now they swing hard the other direction, trying to make sure children never feel emotionally wounded. I understand that. But guidance is not the enemy of connection. Children can experience correction and still feel deeply loved. In fact, children often feel safer when adults are willing to lovingly lead. And the beautiful thing is, it's never too late to begin shifting the emotional culture of a home or a classroom. Small moments matter. The calm interruption, the follow-through, the repair afterwards, the consistency, the willingness to stop laughing at harmful behavior and guide it instead. Those moments shape children deeply over time. And remember this, we do not ignore behavior. We support children through behavior. That means staying connected while still guiding clearly. That is the balance. And that balance changes generations. This week, challenge of the week. Notice how quickly you move into protection mode when your child struggles relationally. Notice the instinct to explain away behavior, rescue immediately, remove discomfort quickly, or ignore behavior. And before stepping in, pause and ask, am I only protecting my child right now, or am I also preparing them? Then, practice holding both warmth and guidance. Try phrases like, I understand you're upset and we still do not hurt people. Or, I'm here with you and you still need to repair this. Simple, clear, connected. Because children do not need adults who rescue them from every hard moment. They need adults willing to stay beside them while they grow through hard moments. That is what builds emotional maturity. Thank you for being here with me today, really, because I think a lot of parents and teachers are carrying pressure right now that nobody really talks about. We are trying to raise emotionally healthy children without becoming harsh, without becoming disconnected, without repeating painful things from our own childhoods. And that is not small work. So if you are trying to stay loving, thoughtful, emotionally aware, and still guide your children clearly, you are doing meaningful work already. And listen, you are doing meaningful work already. And listen, children are going to have moments, big moments, loud moments, completely unreasonable moments, moments where they cry because you cut the sandwich wrong after they specifically asked you to cut the sandwich wrong. It's fine. We're fine. But truly, I hope this episode reminded you that you do not have to choose between being loving and being clear. Children need both. They need warmth and guidance, connection and correction. And none of us are going to do that perfectly every day. But we can keep growing. So if this episode encouraged you, challenged you, or made you feel a little less alone in parenting or teaching, make sure to subscribe. Share this episode with another parent or teacher and leave a comment. I genuinely love hearing your thoughts, stories, and experiences. And as always, little feet need big guidance.